Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is the 133rd Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I have put onto YouTube. The team I'm in today consists of Brotherhood member Uther, who has bought the Rome Julio faction. And then we have RTW player Cornovi, who has bought the Rome Bruto faction. I think he's also known as One Eye, but in this game he's called Cornovi. Then we have a Brotherhood member, Kong Ming. Now I think that is Crimson Overlord. So yeah, I think that's Crimson Overlord, and he's called himself Kong Ming, and he has bought the Germania faction. And then myself, Spartan Commander, who has bought the Rome Julio faction. This battle was fought approximately 3 years ago. I say sometimes I like to show some of the older games for some of the newer players of RTW to watch. But you wait till you see the other team. This should be a really great battle for you to watch. And here is the other team. We have a Brotherhood member Pompey with the Macedon faction. Then we have Brotherhood member Speedstar125, who has bought the Rome SBQR faction. And then we have Legion 22, Brotherhood member Legion 22, who's also bought the Rome SBQR faction. And then we have Brotherhood member Mystique, who has also bought the Scipio faction there, I believe. So there's the other team. All great players, and this should be a really great battle for you to watch. At this stage of the battle, I thought we'd have a look at the Germania army from approximately 3 years ago. As you can see at the front men there, they've got the 120 men units of the Germania spear units there. And then we have the chosen archers. There's the spear units there. And then chosen archers, they've got long range and do a lot of damage. And then we have the Germania naked fanatics. You don't see many people bring this particular unit in the Germania army these days, so that's an interesting one. Then you have the chosen axemen. Now these chosen axemen are effective against armour, and used properly can cut swathes through heavily armoured troops. And then we have the infamous berserkers. If you look at the size of the berserkers here in comparison to the other troops, you'll see how big and powerful they are. The berserkers are based on real characters from history. The berserkers from history often were drunk, or took a cocktail of drugs, or maybe even had mental health issues and were very feared on the battlefield. They literally went berserk on the battlefield and were avoided by both friend and foe alike. Then we have the Night Raiders. The Night Raiders have got a fear factor. They instill fear in nearby enemy troops and are quite effective in their own right. And then we have the Germania Gothic Cavalry. Very underestimated cavalry. You have a look at the specs of this cavalry. They are really great troops. So there's a Germania army from 3 years ago. Looks pretty good to me. At this very early stage of the battle here, you can see that our allies' Julio army here is facing up to the enemy SBQR army there, and you can see that our allies' Brutii army is quite spread out there. If you notice that Germania here is at the back of our team there, obviously they're very susceptible to arrow damage, so the Germania general's just keeping his army out of archer range as much as he can. Meanwhile, over on our left flank here, you can see that the enemy SBQR are moving round to our left, and you've noticed that I've moved my army round to face them there. What they would like to do is get as close as they could to our Germania allies so that he can cause lots of archer damage to our Germania ally there. This should be good, an interesting tactical game to watch. You see, interesting to see what the enemy does here. Once again, at the early stage of the battle here, you can see that our ally has put his some of his units into Testudo. If you notice, the Macedon general has moved his pike units forward to engage the Testudo unit. As you might have seen in other battle videos of mine that I've put on, this is the classic defence of a Roman general against pike attack, is putting their units into testudo. This makes the unit more difficult to kill for the pikemen and also slows down the pikeman's advance. As you can see here, there's lots of movement going around here on our right flank. And as you've seen, the Macedon units are attacking in the centre there. If you notice over to our left flank here, you can see the enemy SPQR army moving out there. And you can see that there's a bit of an archer battle going on between the enemy SPQR archers and our Germania chosen archers, allies archers there. There's a close-up of the archers shooting at our allies archers. You can see like a rain of arrows coming in on them from the Germania chosen archers. As I said before, what those Rome archers would like to do is get into range of the Germania army to cause big casualties. Meanwhile, in the centre here, you can see a lot of action going on between our allies Brutii and the Macedon units there. And over on our right flank here, you can see that some of the SPQR units are in testudo. At this stage of the battle, you can see on our right flank here, Uther, Brotherhood member Uther, has moved some of his units round to the right flank. And if you see the enemy SPQR units are engaging his infantry there, if you notice that Uther is now charging in his cavalry, obviously with a view to routing those engaged SPQR enemy troops. If you notice, the SPQR general is now counter-attacking with his cavalry, bang, as that cavalry goes in there. But if you notice that, if you look at the numbers there, you can see that our allies also sent Brutii cavalry in there. So the SPQR cavalry and infantry are up against Uther's cavalry, Uther's infantry, plus our allies Brutii cavalry as well. So my guess is if the enemy doesn't send over reinforcements there, the enemy SPQR are going to be routed. And there you see the units engaged in that little battle on our right flank there have now mostly been routed there. Nice little team support there by our Brutii ally there. If you notice, I'm crashing my cavalry in as well, just to finish off the any enemy survivors there. If you notice there, there's a lot of activity going on there with the Macedon units pulling back there, as I think what they don't want to do, they don't want to be piloted by the Julii infantry there. As you can see, them moving back. Also, the survivors of the enemy SPQR infantry have pulled back as well there. You can see it over on the left flank there, I'm facing the SPQR, the enemy SPQR infantry. If you notice here, the SPQR cavalry are moving around to the right flank there. If you notice, our Germania cavalry have moved out to the left flank there in support, just in case that SPQR infantry tries to move around to the right flank there. If you notice, our Brutii ally there is engaged with the enemy SPQR infantry in the centre, but if you notice, the enemy Macedon pike units are stood just behind, I presume, in a reserve role there. If you notice, I'm charging my cavalry in here to support my ally. All I'm looking to do here is to try and hit the SPQR infantry. Obviously, I don't want to go any further because the Macedon pikes there are there with their pikes down. And as you've seen in other battle videos of ours, we don't want to tangle cavalry with enemy pikemen there. So I've just charged in, hit that SPQR infantry, and moved my cavalry back. As you can see, there's a heck of a lot of Macedon pikemen there. And if you notice, the enemy are bringing over Scipii infantry to support the Macedon pikemen. Nice teamwork there by the enemy team. Let's see, looking at that amount of pike units that I can see there, I would think that Macedon are going to be difficult to beat head on. Obviously we don't want to fight the Macedon pikemen head on. If we can get around their rear or their flank is what we would be intending to do there. If you notice, our allies, Brutii cavalry, seem to be all over the battlefield, hitting the enemy where he thinks fit, and causing damage to them wherever he hits. If you notice, our Germania ally is right at the back of our units because he's been targeted by long-range Cretan archers, so he's had to move his Germania army all the way to the rear there, even further back. So of course this is an advantage to the enemy team there, because for him to commit his Germania army, he would then have to run even further forward, which would make him even more susceptible to archer fire as he's advancing. So but he has to move that far back to kind of be out of range of the enemy archers there. As you can see here on the right flank, the enemy Scipii infantry are engaged with our allies Julii infantry there. You can see a lot of the enemy archers here are still firing fire arrows, and if you notice, they're firing them into the flank of my army there. So that's a nice little move by the enemy archers there. Remember, archer fire does damage to urban units from the flank and, if possible, the rear. So you can see the fire arrows going into my my infantry there.
They're attacking us! We're being attacked!
You see there's lots of cavalry hits going on here, especially in the centre. And as you can see, the enemy fire arrows are still hitting our units there. Of course, fire arrows lower morale as well as causing casualties. And from what I can see there, they've got a big advantage of us over us with their archers there. If you notice, the enemy SBQR infantry have moved out further to our left here, probably with a view to trying to get round our flank. The Germania general's got a bit of a difficult decision here, because obviously if he wants to commit his berserkers, his most powerful troops, he's going to have to choose where he deploys them very carefully with all those pikemen. As you know, berserkers die quickly if they attack pikes, so he must, whatever he does, avoid the Macedon pikemen there when he decides to attack. Remember, those chosen axemen are effective against armour, and those night raiders that he's got instill fear in nearby enemy troops, so they're also useful to bring in. Now, whether he's going to divide his army and attack, the Germania general is going to divide his army and attack in different places, we'll just have to wait and see. As you can see at the moment, looking at the numbers of the enemy team, it looks to me like they've definitely got an advantage at this stage of the battle. Let's just pause the game a moment to have a look and take stock of the situation. As you can see on our left here, there's a lot of enemy SBQR infantry moving around to our left. If you look at the numbers, you can see that there's quite a few of them there. And we've got my cavalry and a Germania general's cavalry out there to the left. But if you look at the enemy gradually trying to almost surround my army there on the left. If you look at the Macedon pikemen there, Pompey's got a lot of those pikemen in reserve, so they'll be fresh, ready to bring into the battle at any stage. And if you notice that there's a lot of enemy infantry out to our right as well, facing our tired Julii infantry's teammates' infantry there. So in general, if you look at the picture at the moment, it's not very good for our team. So it'll be interesting to see actually what happens here. As you can see there, I'm trying to do some cavalry attacks there to try and weaken the enemy army. If you notice that the Germania Gothic cavalry are charging in as well, also trying to weaken this the enemy team, moving units round to our right here. If you notice that some of the SBQR units are in open order, which if attacked by cavalry can be a little bit of a weakness there. So that's where our cavalry is attacking. Can you see one of the berserkers has been activated? Can you see the red berserker banner flashing red on and off? That berserker has been activated, and he's been charged in with some effective against armor axemen as well. If If you notice, a lot of our allies, Julia infantry and cavalry, are charging in as well to try and back up that berserker charge. Obviously, we're trying to send in as many units as we can to add our charge bonus with that berserker's attack as well. If you notice, the enemy SBQR cavalry have come out to our left, obviously with a view to charge in there.
We're under attack!
There's another berserker unit's been activated and charged into the enemy. Here's a close-up of them. Those berserker units use effective against armor maces. So if you notice, they're throwing, as they hit the enemy infantry, they tend to throw them up in the air. Plus there's some chosen axemen and Gothic cavalry have charged in there as well.
The enemy general is killed!
The enemy Scipio unit did well not to rout there. Let's just pause again for a second, take stock of what's actually happening here. Over on our right you can see a very aggressive enemy Scipio and Macedon attack there. Over on our right in the centre here you can see that we've charged in a berserker unit, chosen axemen, Gothic cavalry into the enemy Scipio units, but there's Macedon units just behind. If you can see my Julia army over here on the left is trying to hold against enemy SBQR plus Macedon units as well. And if you notice that the SBQR cavalry are charging in from the left flank as well here. So at the moment this battle is really in the air, and I would think in general, if you look at what's happening, you would say that the enemy team has got a slight advantage at this stage. Okay, let's start the game back up here. Here you can see the enemy cavalry charging into my left flank here. If you notice that some of my units are starting to rout. If you notice now, I'm charging my cavalry units in to try and take some pressure off my infantry here on the left. I would think anybody taking a bet on this game at the moment, looking at this, I would think it would be very close to decide which way you would put your money. I say, with the way that Pomp is spaced out his pikemen there, it's a great play there, because he knows that wherever the berserkers attack, somewhere along the line they're going to go run into his pikemen, and with their pikes down, they'll just kill the berserkers really quickly here. You can see Uther and our Germania ally trying to attack here on the right flank, trying to rout some of their units there. If you can see the Macedon cavalry, Pompey's Macedon cavalry, 2 units charged into the back of our enemies, of our allies, Julia infantry there. If you notice, our allies charged in some Brutii cavalry there to try and help that. As you can see, it's all happening at the moment. If you notice there, we're attacking the there's a Macedon general just because. If you notice, we're just attacking the SBQR infantry there, but if you notice, there's pike units with their pikes down just behind the enemy SBQR units. So even if we broke through there, we would then run into pikemen with their pikes down. And as you've seen in other battle videos, Rome generals don't like to fight pikemen head on. Just going to pause the game here for us to take stock of the situation. You can see a nice Macedon line there, ready to put their pikes down. You can see the enemy SBQR infantry are attacking us. Remember, we are the what's left of us are Julii, Brutii and Germania, and the enemy are Macedon and the SBQR. So just looking at that, you can see the situation. You can see that Macedon units are out there to our right as well, and we've got some Gothic cavalry ready to charge in. But against those pike units there's an overview of the battlefield at the moment. As you can see, things are not looking that good for our team at the moment. Let's see what happens. Here on our right here, you can see we've just managed to rout a couple of Macedon pike units there. If you notice, I'm charging my cavalry in over there on the left, trying to weaken and kill as many of those enemy SBQR infantry as I can. Once again, trying to take pressure off my infantry. If you notice, you can see some of my infantry starting to rout now with the pressure of the enemy attack on them. As As you can see, unfortunately, it seems like it's just mostly my infantry left at the moment. And if you notice, the Macedon pikemen stood behind the main enemy line there. You can see that they're be fresh. So this game is still very much up in the air at the moment here. Luckily though, by the looks of it, we have got cavalry advantage with Germania and some Julii cavalry. Very battle damaged cavalry, but it still seems like we've got a bit of an advantage with cavalry there. As you can see, the enemy is starting to almost surround my infantry that I've got left, coming in from the flanks, pressurising from the front. But if you notice now, my allies are charging in from the right flank there and starting to cause the enemy to rout. Nice move by my allies there. If you notice now, a lot of the units... Now the Macedon morale is not very good anyway, and with their general dead and those attacks on them, that's what's caused the kind of chain mass rout of the Macedon units there. You can see some enemy SBQR units are still there. But at this time, we've managed to rout most of the enemy units there. I think there's just a few of the Macedon units left. Yeah, my guess is he'd probably admit defeat there, because it wouldn't be worth carrying on there with just those few units that had routed and had managed to rally. But they would have been so battle damaged that probably they would have routed the first time they met any of our armies there. As you can see the intensity of the battle here by the amount of dead on the battlefield. Piles and piles of dead there, and it's quite stretched all over the battlefield. It goes to show how intense the battle was from one end to the other there. And if you look at the battle damaged units that we've got left, you can see how close this battle was and how down to the wire it really went. I must say, I guess that a lot of you really like close battles as well, same as I do. So really well played there to everybody in the game.
Victory!
The first thing I'd like to say is really well played to everybody in the game. I thought the enemy team played extremely well. Some really great support work, some great attacks, and some really great teamwork there by the other team. I noticed there was support for each other all over the battlefield. They played extremely well there. And really well done to the team I was in as well. Some nice kills by the Germania general there. Some really nice kills there. And some great support and some massive cavalry attacks there by our team as well. So really well done to them. I think if you look at the names of the people in this battle, you can see there's so much experience, so much RTW experience in these players that you could see that all over the battlefield. There was little moves, little attacks, some tactical little moves. It was really great to see it. So once again, really well played to everybody in the game. It's Spartan Commander saying, hope you enjoyed the battle. See you soon. Bye for now.